Let me now get straight to the topic of the 18th Nuclear and Energy Forum.
18. jadrového a energetického fóra.
I was at the very beginning 18 years ago. Maybe someone is worried that I'm still here, but I'm glad that I'm in a diametrically different atmosphere than I was 18 years ago. I accept the enthusiasm of the speaker at the beginning of the lecture in connection with the nuclear issue, but that was not the case, and you know that very well. We remember the decision where there was a lack of common sense. I have to mention the decision when the conditions for Slovakia's accession to the European Union were negotiated, and part of these conditions was the closure of 2 healthy and modernized blocks of the atomic power plant in Jasov-Bohunis. It was written in 2004, and I was wondering what we were going to do. That is why having certain documents on the table means predicting and making decisions for many years to come. We decided right during our first mandate in 2006-2010 that we would find supporters in the Italian company Enel, which was the owner of the Slovak power plants at the time, to build a 3rd and 4th block of the atomic power plant in Mochovce. I must admit that if we had not stopped the construction of 2 blocks, we probably would not have had the courage or the rational reasons to accept the decision to continue the construction in Mochovce.
Priznám sa, že pravdepodobne, pokiaľ by nedošlo k odstaveniu 2 blokov,
the speaker looked at us like we were crazy in 2008 when we announced that we were going to finish Mochovce. But we knew very well what an incredibly important role the core plays when it comes to energy security. That is why I am very happy that today we have the 18th anniversary of this outstanding international event. And we are meeting in an atmosphere where we are talking about the core of significance, which is good. Because if we are to talk about energy today, it is not enough to just talk about whether they are ecologically produced. It is not enough to just talk about whether they are price accessible, although these 2 things are extremely important, and I will touch on them in my speech. We also have to talk about the availability of energy, availability and stability. This cannot be achieved without nuclear energy. Please let us acknowledge this. And I would like to welcome Mr. President here at this meeting, and I would also like to thank the European Commission for significantly changing its stance on nuclear energy.
Vieme, že tu máme 2 dôležité programy. Je to jadrový program Európskej komisie z leta. Máme tu rámec štátnej pomoci pre čistý priemysel. To sú dokumenty, ktoré veľmi potrebujeme v tomto období a ktoré dávajú...
We know that we have 2 important programs here. It is the nuclear program of the European Commission from the summer. We have the framework of state assistance for clean energy. These are documents that we need very much at this time, and which suggest that the nuclear alliance, which is here, simply has its life expectancy guaranteed in the basic documents of the European Commission, the European Union, an organization that we all support and which is struggling with such enormous difficulties. It will be very important for you to send a very clear message to the world from this point of view. Without nuclear energy, it will not work. With all the risks associated with it, without nuclear energy, it simply will not work. Ladies and gentlemen, we recently had a joint meeting of the government with representatives of the automotive industry. There is enormous pressure on electromobility, which will create enormous pressure on other sources of energy in Slovakia. If we take into account the fact that today we have 5 automakers and we produce more than 1 million cars a year, what is the pressure on electromobility? We estimate that our consumption will increase by 40–60% by 2040. We will need new sources for this. Moreover, Slovakia must act as a country of data centers. But of course, data centers also require a huge amount of electricity. We will also need batteries. Of course, this also requires a huge amount of electricity. For this reason, I would like to welcome you to the third block, which has already been launched. I assume that the fourth block could also be launched at the beginning of next year. Thank you all. This is not an easy task. Mr. General, do you know how happy I am to see steam coming out of all those chimneys? This is what it was built for. And we know what this means for the energy security of the Slovak Republic. Let's move on. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to inform you that on 10 September this year, the government signed and approved an interstate agreement between the governments of the Slovak Republic and the United States. We want to use the infrastructure of the nuclear power plant in Jasovské Bunice, and we want to build another nuclear power plant into pure state-owned property, whose performance will be substantially higher than the 440s we have, and its performance will be higher than 1000 MWh. I believe that this is a step that will be important not only for Slovakia, but for the whole of Europe, especially for Central Europe. And if we all say that we will have to make a lot of effort and efforts in the post-war arrangement of ties and assistance to Ukraine, this decision for the future will also be extremely important in this region. Someone might ask, why are we taking the path of diversification? And are we asking for cooperation on other markets as well? We have tried South Korea for various reasons, which has led to problems. The truth is that the most likely scenario is that based on the agreement we want to sign with the US government, which has already been agreed on by the US side, there will be cooperation with the US supplier. But we welcome the US supplier to form a consortium, which will be visible to everyone. I understand that France would be happy to join, and there are other manufacturers who would be seen in this huge multi-billion project. Slovakia is a country that not only knows how to build nuclear power plants. Yesterday, the Director General saw in Mochovce how the blocks 3 and 4 are being completed. The third one is finished, but we are talking about the fourth block. And no one can doubt that we have people who know how to build nuclear power plants. This is a fantastic thing. But that is not all. We are a country that is also interested in being able to produce nuclear power plants. We even know how to eliminate the consequences of nuclear stories from the 1970s. I don't want to talk about nuclear accidents. Let's call it a heart story, a nuclear story. Ladies and gentlemen, I have to thank you for stopping in Jasovské Bohunice, which we did everything we could. In the summer, for example, we dismantled the largest part of the primary power plant. It is very important that the contaminated concrete was removed from the pools where the burnt fuel was stored. Then there were the tanks with oxygen borate, which were also cleaned. Then we started dismantling the huge facilities which cleaned 300 tons of contaminated material with 98% efficiency. This is a huge success. I think that the Jasovské Bohunice nuclear power plant is a program for the whole world. It needs to be used as much as possible. We need to train as many people as possible. In this part of the nuclear cycle, we need to be as successful as possible. Thank you. I would also like to thank the Cooperation Committee for this challenging project. I call on all those interested in Slovakia, who are responsible for manufacturing in Jasovské Bohunice, to make the most of this project to improve the well-being of Slovakia. but above all, to show that we are a successful country and that we are even one of the world leaders in nuclear energy, even though we are a country with only 5.5 million inhabitants. But that is not all. We are a country that is interested in being innovative. I welcome the agreement signed by Havis, a nuclear power company, and the Italian company Nucleo. I was present at the signing of the agreement. It is not just about the fact that we are interested in manufacturing small modular reactors or that we want to carry out some innovative actions. For me, the most interesting project of this cooperation is the creation of a center for the processing of burnt fuel and its reusable use. If we succeed in this, we can again say that we will be a leader in innovation. I look forward to working with you. Thank you very much for coming to this meeting and for supporting it with your presence. Ladies and gentlemen, at the beginning I was talking about common sense, and I expressed my hope that ideology will stop making decisions that are very important to us. There is an unfortunate document on the table called repowering. I don't think I need to hide because you all know my opinion on repowering. It is completely nonsensical. Even when it comes to gas, even when it comes to coal, we shoot ourselves in the foot. I am ready to speak to the European Commission on a 24-hour basis to constructively and positively convince them that this is an unreasonable ideological step. Please, throw away those anti-Russian glasses in front of the European Commission. If you throw them away, then we will make more rational and normal decisions. The greatest danger, Mr. General Director, is if the commitment to the topic of repowering and nuclear fuel is fulfilled. We can talk about this a lot. Please talk about what would happen if someone told us from day to day that we cannot continue to extract nuclear fuel from the Russian Federation. We would probably agree on the fact that you cannot insert a rod into the reactor. I am talking about a fuel rod. I am not an expert, but I know minimally that you cannot insert a damaged engine into a Mercedes. It simply does not work like that. If this happens, you will threaten the energy security of the European Union. On the other hand, the United States does not take away a huge amount of enriched uranium from the Russian Federation. Ideology does not have to be there. It does not even work there. But we still insert ideology into our decisions which threaten us. Therefore, as I openly say, Mr. General Director, we will never be able to agree on repowering if we are talking about January 1st, 2028. That is, we are talking about fuel. We will never be able to agree on making decisions that harm the energy security. If we take into account that today in Slovakia, we produce something more than 60% of the nuclear energy, we are talking about a country that is important not only for the territory of the Slovak Republic, but also for the stability of this region. Because as I said, it is no longer just a question of ecology, but also the price, availability and stability of supplies. Just as I take advantage of your presence, Mr. General Director, please let us focus on the prices of energy together. Because in Europe we can produce what we need for ourselves. How should we compete? What should I tell our producers in Slovakia? Why is our price of electricity higher than that of the United States? We will not compare ourselves to China. Some may say that their standards of living are not as good as those in Europe. How should we compete? Please don't give this ideological decision the chance that Europe will be just a museum of culture and culture. We need to live, produce, and work here. That is why the price of energy, what we are going to do with the automotive industry, what we are going to do with the recycling industry, what we are going to do with the nuclear industry, These are the important questions. These are the questions, not sanctions, or whether we like something or not. First of all, we are at home. Let us be successful so that Europe can once again be a place where life is the best. In 2010, the so-called Lisbon strategy was to be implemented. If I'm not mistaken, that year was to be corrected. I think that in the Lisbon strategy it was written that in 2010, Europe, the so-called European Union, would be the best place in the world in terms of quality of life and everything else. In 2010, and I was already the chairman of the government, we found out that we were not the best. So we took the whole Lisbon strategy and threw it in the bin. Then came the Agenda 2020. I don't even know the names of those documents. It turned out the same way. Now we are setting incredible energy goals. I'm looking forward to the decision of the summit in Germany on Thursday when it comes to the ban of combustion engines in 2035. We will talk a lot about that. I just believe that the European Union and the European Commission will take a different path than we have done so far, that we will accept programs and goals that are unachievable and that will directly harm us. Slovakia is and wants to be a stable member of the European Union. Slovakia wants to contribute to making the Union successful, but Slovakia is not a country that will be quiet, even though some people consider us to be small and weak. But I will say it again. Slovakia is not a country that will be quiet. We are bound by the governing concept of sovereign Slovak foreign policy. And this concept, which we emphasize, can be very openly and clearly named. So please, if I said something in my speech that could have upset someone, I said it only because this is how I approach all the topics I have to address. And I have to admit that there are more and more of these topics lately. Dear participants of the 18th Nuclear Energy Forum, please make the most of the opportunities offered by this forum. And I will be happy if, as I said at the beginning, one single sentence about this topic will spread. Without the core, it simply won't work. Thank you for coming and for giving me the opportunity to speak in front of you. Thank you very much.
Ďakujem, že ste prišli a že som mal možnosť pred vami vystúpiť. Ďakujem pekne.